We are going to learn how to make a Japanese notan by cutting positive and negative spaces. You need 2 pieces of construction paper. They can be any color, scissors, glue, and a pencil. Let's start by taking one of our colors, and we're actually going to fold it and cut it a few times to get a perfect square. You should be folding it landscape style, side to side, or hamburger style. Once we fold, we're going to use that crease of the fold as our cutting line to cut our paper in half. This is giving us 2 perfect rectangles. But we only need one, so I'm going to put one of those rectangles to the side. The other one, I need to fold one more time to get a perfect square. I'm using the corner to match along the bottom edge. So fold the corner until the edge of the paper lines up and crease from corner to corner. It's a diagonal fold. Once you fold diagonally, that paper lines up and you have a rectangle that will be extra. I also used my pencil to draw a line. So you can cut along the edge of your paper or cut along the pencil line and get rid of that rectangle scrap. Now when I unfold it, I do have a fold in the middle, but that's okay. It is more of a perfect square. We're going to use that to take to our paper. I'm still focusing on my white square here. Now we are going to draw 2 shapes, but on each edge of the square. So 4 edges, 2 shapes on each edge. You're using your pencil, I'm using my Sharpie, and these are organic shapes. So an organic shape is something that doesn't have a name, and it's kind of blobby, cloudy. It looks different. It might have some points in it, but it's not like a hard geometric shape like a rectangle or square. So you can draw whatever kind of organic shapes you want. See how I'm turning my paper each time? I'm only drawing 2 shapes on each side. Maybe they're wrapping around another shape, but notice, none of those shapes are touching. You want them to be their own shapes, but they're next to another shape. That's okay. They just should not be touching. I'm going to do one more turn here. Maybe some of your shapes are really tall. Maybe some of your shapes are really short. They might be wide. It's totally up to you to decide. And if you draw a shape, you can erase it and try again too. Now I have all my shapes. The next step is to take these shapes and cut them out. So the shapes that we made, although they don't have a name and they're kind of blobby, they're still shapes. It's still an object that we are cutting out. That is called positive shapes, positive space. It's an actual thing that you're cutting out. So I'm using my scissors, cutting along the line here, and once I cut my shape off, I need to save it. So I'm going to start making a little pile and move on to the next shape. This might start get a little tricky if you have a little bit of space in between each shape. You don't want to cut that space in between. Just focus on cutting out each shape on its own. And I'm adding that next shape to my pile. We're going to go ahead and cut the rest of those shapes out, being very careful not to cut the extra space that is starting to be created in between. You'll notice once you cut out all your shapes, you have another shape that is the square. So I'm putting that in the middle, and the next part is kind of like a puzzle. Let's take all of the puzzle pieces and put them back in the space where they fit. Be very careful to make sure it's not flipped around backwards and the shape fits exactly in the spot it's supposed to. Now that I put my puzzle back together, I'm going to take each of those pieces and watch how I turn it and flip it to the other side. So it becomes a mirror image, symmetry from that shape. Each shape you're going to flip and turn over and match on the other side. So now the black paper seems like it's the background, but you're actually starting to see another shape in between. So our positive shapes, the white part, are making positive shapes out of the black part. Now that I have all my pieces arranged in the correct spot, I need to glue them down. Start in the middle first with that big piece and get that glued down so that you can line up the other shapes in the correct spot. And being careful when I'm gluing to go all the way to the edges so that all of those small pieces and corners are glued down and don't get ripped. Carefully trying my best to line up this piece that was a square in the middle of my black paper. If it's not exactly perfect, that's okay, and I'm gently patting it down. Now I can start gluing on my small pieces. But if you want to get a little fancy, you could even make another shape inside those white shapes and cut that out. This is another layer of positive and negative space. If that's too complicated, don't worry, but see how I cut out another small shape there? And I'm going to flip it back inside the black space. So now we have a double positive negative space. Again, if this is too complicated for you, don't worry, skip it. You have enough positive negative space going on anyway. But if you're looking for a little bit of a challenge, go for it. Try and sneak a small shape and turn it back inside. But don't lose all your tiny pieces. So let's go ahead and get everything glued down exactly where it's supposed to be. If the pieces that you are gluing down reach off the edge of the paper, that's okay. You don't have to cut it off. You can keep it there to complete the entire shape. Again, I'm gluing everything down, so that includes those smaller pieces I cut out from the inside of my shapes at the top. Now maybe you just want to do one shape from each side and try out a smaller shape in between, or again, you're going to let that go and just glue your shapes on like normal. Once it's all glued down, I'm going to flip and rub. Give your paper a really nice back rub to make sure all the little edges and corners get nice and glued down on your paper. And voila, a Japanese notan.